Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We are here with a tiny little Rex rabbit. They're about 4 weeks old, doing well. And today we're diving into a topic that every rabbit owner, especially those of us with hobby farms, needs to know about: Coccidia. Coccidia is a problem in a lot of different animals, including rabbits. This disease can sneak up on you fast, and if you don't catch it in time, it can take down even a healthy-looking rabbit. But don't worry, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it is, you will know what to do about it, you will know how to spot it, how to treat it, and most importantly, how to prevent it in your rabbitry or on your homestead. Okay? Yes, you're a good bunny. So let's start with the basics. What is Coccidia? Well, Coccidia in rabbits is caused by a microscopic parasite, a protozoa, actually. And there are a few different species that can infect rabbits, but they fall into two basic categories: intestinal coccidia, which affects the digestive tract, and hepatic coccidia, which goes after the liver. Okay? The liver kind is caused by a different protozoa than the intestinal kind. However, the hepatic is usually more dangerous. Even though they are both serious and you need to do something about both of them, usually the hepatic is more dangerous. And here's the thing: most rabbits carry Coccidia. It's a normal part of rabbits. Okay? It exists inside of them. It's normal. Okay? I swear, I promise it's normal. So, it's only when the parasite population gets out of control, okay, that you start to see problems. And that's most likely to happen in young rabbits, newly weaned kits, rabbits under stress, or when hygiene in the rabbit's environment starts to slip. So when things start to be really dirty and you're not cleaning the pens properly, then you can have a coccidia risk. So let's talk about symptoms. With intestinal coccidia, the most common symptoms might include things like soft or runny stools, sometimes with mucus or even a little bit of blood. If you see blood in the stool, that's a telltale sign. You also might notice a lot of weight loss or failure to gain weight in young rabbits. So you're talking like 5-6 weeks and suddenly they're not gaining weight anymore. That's not normal. If they look really scruffy or have an unkept coat for no apparent reason. So if you have young rabbits, they might be learning to play with each other and stuff. So they might look a little scuffed up here and there as they play with each other. But it shouldn't be a regular, oh, look how scruffy my rabbit's looking. Like, she's not looking scruffy. She has a nice coat. And she should have a nice coat. Shouldn't you? Yeah. So you want your rabbits to have nice coats, unless there's a real darn good reason why they don't. You might notice reduced appetite or reluctance to eat, and they might be lethargic or particularly weak. If it's hepatic coccidia, you might have like a bloated or distended abdomen, so the tummy might be really swollen. The rabbit might appear jaundice, meaning, the whites of the eyes might appear yellow, or the inside of the ears might look a little bit yellowed. That's jaundice. You also might notice that they seem really, really tired, like depressed and exhausted all the time. That could be hepatic coccidia. And sometimes there are really no external symptoms till it's too late. Rabbits are really good at concealing the fact that they're sick. And sometimes they just die and you don't really know why, because they didn't show you any symptoms. They're a prey animal. Prey animals hide how sick they are, and they also chew on your microphone. So it goes. Now, none of the symptoms I've described are exclusive to coccidia. They could indicate another problem. That's why proper diagnosis is so important. If you expect coccidia, you'll need a fecal test. Okay, that's usually run through your vet. You can do this through a vet, or if you have the equipment at home, you can do it at home. But I prefer to do it through a vet. Okay? So basically when they do the fecal, they're looking at the rabbit's poop and they're looking for basically the eggs of the parasite in the rabbit's stool. And when they see those eggs, then they'll know exactly what it is: coccidia. In hepatic coccidia, the vet might also do a blood panel or even an ultrasound to check the liver. Remember, hepatic is more serious, more diagnostics will be involved. So once you have a proper diagnosis and you know that that's what it is, now what? Well, don't panic, okay? And don't eat microphones. Eating microphones won't solve anything. But coccidia is treatable, especially if you catch it early. Your best options are medications designed specifically to stop coccidia from reproducing. Okay, the most commonly used where I am is Baycox. Works really, really well. There's a couple of different drugs that work really, really well. Sometimes, depending on the rabbit's symptoms, you're going to pair them with antibiotics, and there's a couple of different things you can pair them with. So you're going to want to talk to your vet about what works best for you where you are, because sometimes it's based on the strain of coccidia that your rabbit has. Okay. So we've had to deal with coccidia before, and we also use sulfa drugs. Sulfa drugs can help. These are kind of an older treatment, but they're still pretty effective. They're often used in water treatment for a period of 5 to 7 days and can be helpful if you're treating an entire herd. You're going to want to make sure the dosage is correct for any medication you're administering, because the dosage can get real finicky. Usually it's based on weight, so you're going to have to find out how much your rabbit weighs. Again, the vet can help you with that. They have all the small animal scales, so no problem. And I've got a rabbit who's leaving. But you are going to want to know how much your rabbit weighs, so you're going to know exactly how much medication you're going to need to administer, because it will vary. Okay. When it comes to which medication, you're going to have to trust your vet on that one, because they're going to look at the strain that you're dealing with. Okay. Again, dosage and duration are going to depend very much on the vet's advice. No matter which medication you're using, treat all the rabbits in the same area, even if they seem healthy. If one what are we doing? If one has it, so do the others. Okay. So definitely make sure you are treating everybody. We keep hitting the microphone because we're running around. Yeah. But treat everybody. And you want to repeat the treatment usually in 5 to 7 days, if recommended, to break the parasite's life cycle, because that means then any new eggs don't hatch and all that kind of good stuff. And then you need to sanitize everything the rabbits touch, and I mean everything. Coccidia is extremely tough. They can survive for weeks in damp bedding or soil. So scrape everything out. We tend to do a burn. I don't recommend it, because if you're not good at controlled burns, it can get out of control. But we tend to do a sulfur burn in the grass so that we kill it. Again, get your vet's recommendation for what they recommend for the strain of coccidia you're dealing with. So, what about supportive care? They're going to need it, okay? Even with medication, your rabbit's body is under a lot of stress when they're fighting coccidia. Dehydration is a huge risk, especially if there's diarrhea involved. So make sure your rabbits have constant access to fresh water. You can even add electrolytes to their water if you want to help them bounce back just a little bit faster. You could get an electrolyte powder from your livestock store or from your vet. They have them. And you can encourage your rabbits to eat by offering their favorite foods. Maybe that's fresh hay, or maybe they really like parsley or things like that. Whatever normally tempts them. If they're refusing to eat altogether, you might have to syringe feed a critical care formula, because if they're not eating, they got to eat, right? And often you can mix that critical care formula with some softened pellets and use a syringe to almost force feed them, get that gut moving. It's really important. One of the biggest dangers of coccidia is actually that they're going to go into GI stasis and die that way. So definitely keep them eating. You might need to add some probiotics or a small amount of apple cider vinegar to the water. Check with your vet for that. This will help rebalance the gut microbiome after treatment. It's not a cure, but it can help. it's not a cure. You're just going to have to muscle through with the medications and supportive care as best you can. What about natural remedies? I know that many of you, like us, prefer to raise your animals as naturally as possible. I get it. I like doing that too. But let's talk about what herbs and natural treatments are out there and which ones actually work. One of the most popular natural options for coccidia is blackberry leaves or vines. These are rich in tannins, which help firm up the stool and can slow down the parasite's ability to reproduce. You can feed it fresh, or you can feed dried leaves. Rabbits generally love them, but they're not a great addition to a diet when you're not dealing with coccidia. So apple cider vinegar can also help when added to the drinking water, about like a tablespoon per quart, not a ton. It helps lower the pH of the rabbit's digestive tract, creating an environment that's a little less friendly to parasites. Not a cure, but it's supportive. Other herbs you might have heard used to help along the way with coccidia are like plantain and dandelion, maybe oak leaves, willow, yarrow. These are often used to support the rabbit's immune system and gut lining, and you can offer them fresh or dried or a blended herbal mix to help support the immune system. But I do want to be really clear about something. Natural remedies are supportive, but they are not a cure. You need proper treatment for coccidia. Supportive treatments are great, and I love the natural herbal remedies. They're fantastic, but you have to get proper care, okay? Especially when the disease is advanced. If your rabbit is severely affected, you need to use real medications. You can still offer the herbs alongside the other treatments, but don't try to go herbal only if the rabbit is crashing or if the rabbit is eating your microphone, because that's also not good. So, herbs and other natural treatments work fantastic as supportive care or even preventative care. Once you have an active problem, you need the medication. You can't skip it. So, how do we prevent coccidia from setting in the first place? Hygiene. That's the first thing. I know it's not a fun part of farming, but it's the most important. Clean your rabbit hutches or cages regularly. Remove old bedding, disinfect, keep the feed and water dishes elevated off the floor so they're not drinking their own poop. You don't want to do that. Housing design. Wire bottom cages can help, but it's better if they just have the space to not be walking around their own poop all day, right? So you don't keep them in such tiny quarters that they can't get out of their own poop. I don't love wire bottom cages. There are humane ways to do it, sure, but I prefer just letting the rabbits run around on the ground, but keep the pens clean. If you're going to have animals, you have to clean up after them. So just give it a rake once a week. It's fine. The next thing you want to deal with is quarantine. Anytime you bring a new rabbit in, you want to separate them 30 feet for 30 days, whether it's a baby or a breeder. That's why we have Smeagol not in with the group. She's 30 feet for 30 days. We haven't had her 30 days yet. That's just the way it is. Make sure that she is separated, okay? Coccidia has a fast reproductive cycle, and this gives you time to notice any signs before it spreads to your main herd. Also, you want to manage the stress of your fluffle, okay? Rabbits that are stressed are more likely to become symptomatic carriers. That means avoid sudden temperature changes, overhandling, loud environments. Make sure they're getting a good diet, like hay, clean water, a balanced set of pellets. Make sure they are as healthy as you can make them. And if you're breeding rabbits, consider breeding for genetic resilience. Some lines are naturally more resistant to parasites than others. Select for health and resistance, not just appearance or growth rate. Things matter even more than how cute the bunny is. Even though you are so cute. Yes. You're also so healthy. Yes. So definitely make sure you are selecting healthy, robust rabbits. Now that's a lot of information, I know, but I hope this makes you feel a little bit more confident about identifying, treating, and preventing coccidia in your rabbits. We've dealt with it before. It's not fun. Okay? It's hard to deal with. It sucks when you lose a couple rabbits to it, but it is possible to deal with it. Okay, get on it quickly, get to your vet immediately, administer the medication as directed, and don't stop administering the medication before the end of the course. You need to make sure you're using the whole course of medication so that you have treated every life cycle of that parasite. Okay? Anyway, that is about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. If you've ever dealt with Coccidia in your own rabbits, or you've got a natural remedy that worked really well, I would love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and share your experience. We'll see you tomorrow.